नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या संप्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ओम शांतिः शांतिः शांतिः। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांतिः शांतिः शांतिः। ओम ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगत् तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथा मा गृधः कस्य स्विद्धनं कुर्वन्नेवेह कर्माणि जिजीविषेच्छतं समाः। एवं त्वयि नान्यथेतोऽस्ति न कर्म लिप्यते नरे। असुर्या नाम ते लोका अन्धेन तमसा वृताः तांस्ते प्रेत्याभिगच्छन्ति ये के चात्महनो जनाः। अनेजदेकं मनसो जवीयो नैनद्देवा आप्नुवन् पूर्वमर्षत् तद्धावतोऽन्यानत्येति तिष्ठत् तस्मिन्नपो मातरिश्वा दधाति। तदेजति तन्नैजति तद्दूरे तदवन्तिके तदन्तरस्य सर्वस्य तदु सर्वस्यास्य बाह्यतः। यस्तु सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मन्येवानुपश्यति सर्वभूतेषु चात्मानं ततो न विजुगुप्सते। यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मैवाभूद्विजानतः तत्र को मोहः कः शोक एकत्वमनुपश्यतः। सपर्यगाच्छुक्रमकायमव्रणम् अस्नाविरं शुद्धमपापविद्धं कविर्मनीषी परिभूः स्वयंभूर्याथा तथ्यतोऽर्थान् व्यदधाच्छाश्वतीभ्यः समाभ्यः। ओम शांतिः शांतिः शांतिः। So we were studying this 8th verse, which is the darshana, which expresses the darshana. The Sanskrit word for philosophy is darshana, and darshana means a vision, a seeing, a direct experience. So in this mantra, Maharshi Dadhyang Atharvana, Dadhyang the son of Atharva, the seer of this Ishavasya Upanishad, puts into words the direct experience that he had within himself as he entered through the various layers which will be described in Taittiriya Upanishad, and Guruji speaks of them so very often. Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. These 5 external layers, the essence that he reached within is what he is trying to express in words. Though it is in a fable, the Upanishads are very clear about it. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha, from where our speech comes back without describing it, along it with the mind, which has the capability to understand. Yet, what else should they talk about? And so he is putting into words his experience and a few adjectives that we had already studied in our previous session. The essence of those adjectives was that this inner pure consciousness is what transcends the physical body as well as the psychological body. And what is the psychological body? When we speak, I need to keep you reminding again and again, because we are quite clear about the physical body, but when we speak about the psychological body, then it consists of 17 or sometimes 18 elements, 18 entities, the 5 senses of perception, the 5 senses of action, the 5 types of movements that happen within the body, which we call the 5 pranas. So that makes it already 15. And then manas and buddhi. Manas, which means this continuous stream of thought, and buddhi, the faculty of cognition, the faculty of perception, the faculty with which we understand everything. And of course, within these 2 is also included our own self-perception, the way we perceive ourselves, the way we understand the picture that we have in our mind of our own self, the description that we have created, the way we describe ourselves, that self-description, that ego, that ahankara, that is also included in this. And another entity that is also included is chitta, the vast reservoir of all the memories, of all the subtle impressions. So if you include the last 2 that I spoke about into this continuous stream of thought and into the faculty of understanding, it becomes 17 entities, otherwise 18 or 19, depending the way various masters have counted it. So that is what they call the subtle body. So I said that when he uses the word akayam, akaya, it transcends kaya. Kaya also means physical body, but in this context, kaya means something that is what was the English word for that? Yes, assemblage. That's the word that I used in my previous session. Something that is, because the very root, the Sanskrit root in the word kaya, kairi, that means to assemble. So anything that has been assembled, the physical body is called kaya because it is assembled out of various different parts, various different organs. And similarly, the psychological body is also an assemblage. And so Akayam says that this entity transcends everything that is an assemblage. It is that part of my being which is not a result of tiny little parts being assembled together into one entity. It is that. And Avranam, invulnerable or transcending any wounds, again describes both, because one can have psychological wounds as well as physical wounds. So it means it transcends all wounds, which means it transcends that which is capable of being wounded. It is beyond that. It transcends that. And Asnaviram, devoid of transcending sinews. This is very clearly because you have sinews in your physical body. So it is clearly referring to the physical body. Then came another beautiful adjective, Shuddham. Shuddham means completely clean, which means transcending the darkness of ignorance. Because all impurities in the Upanishadic context are either understood on the path of sadhana, on the path of practice. An impurity is something that causes a hindrance in directing one's awareness inward, which means something, a thought, an idea, an inclination, an emotion, or anything that distracts us, anything that stops the awareness from entering within itself and pulling it outward, away from itself. That is known as an impurity in sadhana, on the path of practice. And an impurity कुछ बिछाने को दे दीजिए हमको। An impurity for a siddha, for somebody who has accomplished, for somebody who has entered within himself, somebody who has practiced everything that he had to practice. For him, impurity consists of darkness, of the darkness of ignorance. That is the impurity for such a person. So whenever we speak of impurity, we mean either thoughts which distract us, or that fundamental ignorance, that fundamental darkness of ignorance. Deep down, both of them are the same thing. One is just the effect, and the other one is the cause. The darkness of ignorance is the cause, and the distractive thoughts are just its effects. So when he speaks of Shuddha, pure, he means pure like light. And therefore these two words which have been used here in the beginning, Shukra and Shuddha, they both practically mean the same thing, yet if you look at their derivation, Shukra means more radiant, pure like light, And Shuddha means from which all impurities have been removed. Free from the impurity of ignorance. So this is what Shuddha means. Now he goes a little bit further, and this is the next adjective which he uses, apapa viddham, which will, to explain this, I will have to explain a little bit the idea of good and evil as it is understood in the yogic traditions. This is what I will do today, because this is something that is quite important and yet has not been discussed by us till now. The following discussions are rooted in this, because the following discussions are about rituals, about the importance of rituals in meditation. Why each one of them on its own is detrimental, but both combined together can help a person to evolve, lift themselves up. But that is the following discussion. Here, first of all, let me start with the idea that Patanjali presents in this context in the 4th chapter of the Yoga Sutras, when he speaks of karma. He says that there are 4 types of karmas. 4 types of karmas. Okay, before I come back to this sutra, let me first explain what I mean by the word karma, because again this can be sometimes a little bit confusing. Karma in Sanskrit means action. Any action. And action can be performed on 3 different levels. On the physical level, on the mental level, and on the verbal level. The mental level is really the fundamental level. The verbal level is the second level of that expression of the mental level, and the physical level would be the third level of expression of the mental level. But the verbal level and the physical level ultimately have their root in the psychological level. So first of all, a person makes an effort on the psychological level, then he can make an effort on the verbal or the physical level. So any action that is performed on any one of these 3 levels in Sanskrit is called karma. That is called karma. Now, if you look a little bit deeper what an action does to us, even though we just execute an action and the action is over, even the slightest little action changes something deep within our mind. It is very difficult to realize that, but if, for example, now, for the first time when I started riding a bicycle, I could not ride it. I just fell down. And then after a few days, after practicing it for a few days, after 15 days, 20 days, 1 month, a day came when I could ride with full speed without even holding the handle, just riding like this. What happened? What did happen on the very first day during my first effort? Even though I just made one effort, yet a small subtle impression, which we translate into English as subtle impression, samskara. Samskara in Sanskrit is a very interesting word, because samskara is something like, samskara does not really mean subtle impression. What samskara means, such as when you add some herbs to your food, that is what we call in Sanskrit samskara. You know that smell, that taste of that herb permeates the whole food. So similarly, every action that we do leaves a sanskara in our unconscious mind in the same way, which means it changes something in it. That is what has been translated into English as a subtle impression, that every action, every psychological action, every verbal action and every physical action leaves a samskara, leaves a subtle impression, which can be strengthened by repeating the action again and again, or it can be weakened by repeating the opposite action again and again. By learning the correct one can unlearn the incorrect one, or one can, by doing the incorrect one again and again, one can unlearn the correct one. That is also possible. It is both ways. It depends on our choices. So abhyasa, that is why abhyasa is so important. That is why so much has been talked about by Patanjali, by various masters about abhyasa. And one of the meanings of practice of abhyasa, of course, it also means to go deeper, to sit deeper into it. But through what? Through doing it again and again, through doing it again and again. That is how we go deeper into a posture, for example. What does actually a posture do? I mean, it just leaves a samskara on our physical body. It leaves, by going into a particular posture initially, it's very difficult. We just reach a very initial primary level. But then the samskara, the more we practice, the more the samskara gets strengthened and we enter deeper into that posture, and then eventually we acquire the level in which yogaja samskara, the samskara created through our practice of yoga, has entered our physical level to such an extent that we reach stages of asana like Guruji. What is it? It is just abhyasa, it is just practice, it is just strengthening that samskara deeper and deeper, and at the same time unlearning the samskaras which were harmful, unlearning. In the same posture, you can make efforts that would be harmful. So we have to identify themselves. We have to identify them so that we can avoid them and make the correct effort. And by repeating the correct effort again and again, then why is it that sometimes when you tell some of your students that do it the wrong way, they can't do it? Because they have completely unlearned it. Yet everybody else can do the wrong way. Yet those who have who have learned the proper way, they can't do the wrong way anymore. So that is samskara. That is samskara on the physical level. Similarly, one can cultivate yogaja samskara on the level of breathing. One can cultivate yogaja samskara on the level of the senses. One can cultivate yogaja samskaras on the level of this continuous stream of thoughts. One can develop yogaja samskaras within the faculty of understanding. One can cultivate yogaja samskaras within this perception that we have of ourselves, this picture that we create in our mind of ourselves, this self-description that we have. There also one can cultivate yogaja samskaras, and ultimately where do these yogaja samskaras ultimately reside? In what they call this reservoir of all memories. Sometimes the word chitta is used for that, or smriti, sometimes the word smriti, memory or chitta, this reservoir of all the samskaras. So we have understood that every action leaves a samskara. Now, the logical thing is that because actions are of two kinds, actions which are beneficial and actions which are harmful. So obviously, we can define the samskaras also in these two categories. Harmful actions impress harmful samskaras, and beneficial actions impress beneficial samskaras. So now we have these two words, karma, action, and samskara, subtle impressions, which sometimes in the yogic literature is also referred to as karma samskara. Karma samskara, the subtle impressions caused by actions. So we have karma and karma samskara. Now sometimes it becomes confusing because what the yogic masters do, they use the word karma as short for karma samskara. Because karma samskara is a long word. Just say karma. And this is the word that has come into English language. My karmas, your karmas. They mean actually karma samskaras. Karma is action. Karma samskara or karma are those subtle impressions, and that karma has entered English language. The English language, when we use the word my karmas or your karmas, with spirituality as spirituality spread into the West, there is nothing wrong about it. There is nothing wrong about it. A little bit of misunderstanding is certainly there. That is why that requires clarification. Okay, so therefore, in one of the Upanishadic statements, Punyo vai punyena karmana bhavati papah papena, when a person performs beneficial deeds, which is, in Sanskrit we call it punya, and the harmful deeds are called papa. Punya is sometimes translated as virtue, and papa is sometimes translated as sin. Now the problem with the word sin is that the moment we use the English word sin, particularly to a Western mind, because it is a religious word. It is used in the religious context, and all those ideas that have been added for an Indian, those ideas don't exist to a great extent, which exist in the West. And therefore it is sometimes a little bit problematic if we translate simply the word papa with sin. Therefore, if we look at the Sanskrit word, it is quite different, because the Sanskrit word papa has been derived from pa, and pa means pa means to protect. Pa means to protect. Something from which we should protect ourselves, because it leads ultimately to suffering. So for example, even if we talk about the samskara on a very physical level, that wrong practice will ultimately lead us into suffering, and then we will blame yoga. But it is our wrong practice, it is our wrong effort, it is what we did wrong. So we have to protect ourselves from that. We have to save ourselves from that. That is called papa in Sanskrit. Anything from which it is beneficial to save oneself, to bring oneself away from it, that is called papa. So any samskara, because it leads ultimately to suffering, and therefore we would like to protect ourselves from that action or that samskara, that subtle impression, that is called papa. On the other word, punya, the other Sanskrit word which is used for virtue, for merit, for the good samskaras, for the good subtle impressions, that has been derived from the root pu, which means to purify. Puyate anena. Puyate means to purify. That which is the result of purification. And purification comes with awareness. Always keep that in mind, that impurities happen with the lack of awareness, then mistakes happen. And with awareness, the more we cultivate awareness, in the light of awareness, it is very difficult to commit mistakes. So that is why awareness is seen as the greatest, consciousness is seen as the most purifying entity, because it purifies the impurity, that ignorance. So punya means, in Sanskrit, something that purifies. So the good samskaras, the good subtle impressions, the ones that are beneficial, the ones that purify us, help us to get rid of those from which we want to save ourselves, they are called punya. So that is the word, these are the two words that we often, and even though they have been translated in English literature through merit and sin, but those English words simply don't do justice to the idea that the Sanskrit words give. Sometimes two other set of words are used, dharma and adharma. Again in the same meaning completely. Dharma means that which holds us up, because dhri means to hold. That which holds us, that which helps us to evolve. One of the definitions by Maharshi Kanada is yato abhyudaya, through which a person evolves, like Suryodaya, like the sun rises, similarly through which a person rises and acquires nishreyasa, acquires the pinnacle, the best. That is called sadharma, that is called dharma. So that is those good deeds and the subtle impressions impressed by performing good deeds, that is called dharma, and that which is not dharma, that is called adharma. However, now let me come back to the sutra of Patanjali, in which he uses another set of words, black and white. He uses the word Krishna and Shukla, black and white. It's very logical what black should mean here and what white should mean here. Black is the color of darkness and white is the color of light. So that which consists of light is white and that which consists of darkness is black. So he speaks of Krishna karma, the black karmas, the dark karmas, which we understand what they can be, which happen, which are executed by those who are who have lost themselves in the path of unrighteousness, in the path of tormenting others, in the path of committing atrocities on others. They cultivate this Krishna karma, this black karma. Those who try to keep themselves balanced in their worldly dealings, yet sometimes they have to become angry on others, sometimes they have to be nice with them. So some good karmas and some bad karmas are accumulated. In our daily lives, that is part of this reality. We are very kind with some, and sometimes we have to be rash with other people. We have to be, there is no other choice. So it's part of our dealings, and in that we accumulate what he calls Shukla Krishna, a little bit of white and a little bit of dark, the grey karmas, one can say. And as a person goes deeper within and stays with himself, works with himself, works with his body, works with his prana, works with his senses, works with his mind, in the understanding of Patanjali, a person develops Shukla karma, the white karmas. And then he also speaks about Ashukla Krishna karma, the fourth category of karma, the kinds of karmas which are neither white nor black, which is the realization towards which I will come a little bit later. The Upanishads also talk about that state in which there is neither righteousness nor unrighteousness. A person has transcended papa as well as punya, both. And why is this important? In the understanding of the Upanishadic masters, the idea, whatever Patanjali has said in the Yoga Sutras, I keep on pointing it out again and again, has its roots in the Upanishadic teachings. But what Patanjali has contributed is a very systematic, step-by-step presentation. That is all what Patanjali has. Otherwise, everything else is already in the Upanishads. Some ideas, if not clearly expressed, then as seeds. Upanishad itself, when we discussed the meaning of the word Upanishad, I said that Upanishad is one of the synonyms of yoga. Yoga and Upanishad both mean exactly the same thing. So, in the understanding of the Upanishadic masters, the journey should be that first of all we cultivate the good samskaras, the beneficial samskaras, so that we can unlearn the harmful ones, the bad ones. That is the first step. And then the second step is to transcend even the good ones, not to get attached to the good ones as well. That is for them the second step. It is like we take soap to wash our hands, to get rid of the dirt. Then we don't leave the soap there, because now we have to wash it away. And after we have washed it away, we dry our hands. So we also want to get rid of the water that washed both of them away. Only then we can have our hands as they really are. So the goal of the Upanishadic masters, the goal of the yogis is not to experience the good beyond the bad, but the goal of the yogis is to experience the essential nature as it is, beyond good and bad. So for them, good is just an instrument, a tool which helps us to uplift from the bad, and yet complete evolution that a human being is capable of happens only when a person also transcends the good. So this is for them the final goal that they want to reach. So to summarize again, first step for them is to transcend papa, the bad samskaras, by cultivating and strengthening the good ones. That is first part of the practice. Then the second part of the practice is even to lift up beyond the notion of good samskaras. Can I give another example too?
We're talking about what is transcending beyond the mood, but maybe more real life actions, because washing the hands is more metaphorical.
Yes. I think that on the physical level and on the psychological level, transcending the good is not possible, is really not possible. But when a person becomes a witness to them, if we understand this idea that I have become a witness to them, I don't identify anymore. I allow the body to be in a good state. That is what happens in asana, for example. When a yogi sits in asana, he assumes the proper posture, he makes the proper effort, yet he does not allow himself to remain limited in that. He goes deeper. And that going deeper is only possible when he detaches himself. himself, what I mean by that himself, by that consciousness with which he is witnessing the body which is in good state. That is why sometimes in one of the shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna says that Arjuna, allow yourself to transcend all the three gunas, which means sattva, rajas and tamas. Transcend yourself also beyond sattva, and in the same shloka, but allow your mind to be established in sattva. So why does he say that? Because on the psychological level, on the level of thoughts, till thoughts are there, there are only two possibilities, either good thoughts or bad thoughts. But transcending both means having no thoughts at all. So that is what I understand, transcending, both transcending even the good ones.
Does it mean not having any thoughts or just being detached from those?
Both.
No thoughts?
Both. But no thoughts is also kept. It's completely possible. Through practice of meditation, a person can enter in a state where there is no thought at all. You are just there. There is just presence. They have described it, those masters who have entered it. It is like clear sky without any clouds in it. Like looking at... Yeah, that comes and goes. The other one, what Sahaja Samadhi, which you are talking about, thoughts are there, yet a person completely remains detached as a witness to that. What sometimes modern psychologists have used the word Teflon mind.
Teflon mind. It's like the pan. You know the pan that's made from Teflon?
Teflon.
It doesn't stick.
Non-stick, in which you can fry without anything, boil or fry or whatever. It doesn't get stuck to it. So yes.
But it's not practical for human life, everyday life.
Yeah. In everyday life, yes, I fully agree that it is not practical, but at the same time, you see what sometimes happens. Initially, yes, whatever you are saying is very true. Yet, when a person, for example, gets engaged in charity and just thinks that this is all there is, then that becomes a kind of attachment, because though charity is a beautiful attachment, it is a good work, we are helping others, we are karma yoga, for example, good deeds, helping others, noble deeds, yet we, first of all, because it gives us some inner satisfaction, because yes, and in some cases it gives us fame, it earns us respect. We start getting attached to good deeds also. So that attachment is what they are addressing, and to detach oneself from that, it is a deep internal engagement with a part of our own self. Yes, it is not practical. In practice, as I said, we can either do the wrong thing or we can do the correct thing. We have only these two capabilities, these two possibilities. So we transcend the wrong way of doing it by the correct way of doing it. Yet then, why to get attached even to the correct way? Why that attachment also? Does that make sense?
I understood what you just said, but it's not. I don't understand.
Would have to see where it is rubbing against the edge.
But sooner or later, I think it does. You just get it one day. Thinking about it and knowing it is just the first step.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
One day it just comes.
Yeah. Yeah. that is the subtlety, that is the suppleness of accommodating concepts sometimes, which has to be increased as well. And like the physical body becomes more and more supple, and we accommodate various asanas. She, if I understood her correctly, she says it's not practical. Yes, it's not practical. What else was the?
No, I understand why we shouldn't be attached also to the positive actions.
Yeah.
Things, but I just don't see how we do that, or how does it come in real life. In meditation, okay, but in meditation, it's
yes, in meditation.
You're not part of.
Yeah.
You are by yourself.
Yeah.
So what?
Does a person really need to be attached to his actions while he is performing good deeds? Does he really, is this a prerequisite for a person to perform a good action, that he has to be attached to it? He can be completely, because detachment is an internal tendency. A person, it is something good to do it, so he would be doing it. The Buddha, for example, post-enlightenment, he was still serving the sick. He was still serving the sick. So he was executing good deeds, and yet was he attached to it? So one can, there is, by not being attached to one's good deeds, I'm not saying that a person has to stop committing them. That is again a misunderstanding that arises, for example, in the discussions, in the deeper discussions of, for example, of Chandogya Upanishad, where when Bodhidharma, he went to China, or when in Chandogya Upanishad, Raikwa goes to Janashruti Pautrayana, who were noble kings. They were performing so many noble acts, deeds, taking care of their societies, their kingdoms, taking care of the poorest of the poor. And yet, when they are told that all this, what you are doing, is useless, if it does not lead you into something deeper within yourselves. So did they, after hearing that, after learning that, did they stop committing good deeds? No. But they started doing it without attachment. And the problem with attachment is that if that even little bit of attachment is there, it has always the fear of transforming into hatred. When there is attachment, because attachment is just the first part. When you derive something selfish out of something, then if that little bit changes, you start disliking it. So there is always this fear of developing hatred. So why not to get rid of the very root? So that is how I understand that they are talking. They are not saying don't commit good deeds with the physical body, with the mind, with words. Yes, sure. But not to achieve something, not as an act of attachment for some selfish gratification. So that is a tendency. That is the way we relate with our actions. That is an internal change which is completely possible. It doesn't mean that one has to stop performing good deeds. It makes completely sense to me. Yes.
In Western philosophy too, there's Nietzsche literally has a book
that says Beyond Good and Evil.
And so that's kind of the starting point for then when he got to Zarathustra, where he set up the idea of the Ubermensch.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Ubermensch is kind of to go over the human. But I think many people kind of misunderstand it for this very reason, is that it's trying to I don't know, it's trying kind of what you were saying about...
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Let it come back again. No problem. Yeah.
Say that thinking about the action is attachment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe according to her question, she asking not to think about something, like not to thinking about an action means to stay.
I don't know if that is what she meant, but thinking or not thinking, then we are falling into lack of awareness and awareness. If we start committing actions without thinking, then we might think that I'm committing action without thinking, but our tendencies, our inclinations might take over, which then... So that would be sort of a little bit going, at least that is how it seems to me right now. I'm learning in the process of these discussions myself. Now I'm no more the one that is speaking, but rather somebody trying to learn from you. So, but I see that lack of awareness is not a solution. Awareness has to be there behind everything that we do. If it happens without awareness, if it happens devoid of awareness, then I think things can happen easily. We see that in our asana practice. The more we become aware, the less mistakes we make, and the less we are aware, the more mistakes we make. So yes, awareness is very essential. Yes, but maybe just one little comment that I would like to add, that once we have practiced something so much that it becomes our very nature, then we don't even have to think about it, but it just happens through us. And that is sometimes the idea that we find, that good deeds, they express it that mudhaiva cheshtam karoti. The great masters don't execute good deeds, but rather good deeds naturally happen through them. So if that is what you are pointing at, yes, then I fully agree. So it depends how you look at it. When it becomes very natural in that sense, then it is beautiful.
It's not like this that we do more actions without thinking.
Yes. Yes.
We don't think because we just go according to our emotions, and then of course we go on.
See, Mataji herself does not like the mic, so how can anybody else like it?
But there seems to be something inhuman about it. I guess, I don't, that there seems to be something that's not, it seems counterintuitive on a human level to try to go beyond acting good or bad. But, and I think then how do you incorporate that kind of feeling of almost an alien inhumanness, and then how do you incorporate that into your human daily life?
Sorry?
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
In referring to what she was saying also about the impracticality, I think I understand what you were trying to say, and it connects with what you were saying now, Mary. What I've learned from my own experience about this detachment from the actions is, and this is very difficult, very, very difficult, is to not think about what that action will bring you in the future, no matter what it is. Work, relationship, yoga asana. It doesn't mean to not have some type of a plan, because you do have a little bit of an idea, but that's where you can stop it. You can do the best that you possibly can at the present moment, and then not worry about what happens after that. You don't get attached to the result. That's how I've understood this to be, which is really difficult to do, because if you do a job or you have a relationship, you have hopes, you have expectations. You think, I'm going to do this because I want to get there. If you can get rid of the there and just do the best you can at that very moment, everything else will take care of itself. that's how it becomes practical in a certain way. You know, that's something that the mind, the body, the verbal side, also the actions, that can be worked on. It's difficult, but it can be. You have to kind of stop yourself from saying, I'm doing this to get that. No, I'm not getting anything. That thing is, I could be dead in a second. So there's nothing that you need to get. Just do. Do that thing, the good thing, and then not worry about the rest of it.
Being more oriented towards the action itself than to the results.
That helps create a time, and it's helped me create that attachment.
Yeah, that is the whole idea. I mean, a person gets attached to one's actions because he or she is attached to its results. That the real attachment is towards the results and not...
Disappointment comes.
Yeah, and then disappointment comes. Yes, then disappointment comes. So the only way ultimately to free oneself from disappointment is that. Yes.
You don't know the result.
You don't know the results.
It's impossible to know what the result.
Yes.
I just say that
Next time we will have codeless.
say
So
someone gives
later, yeah.
anonymous like a donation if they're lucky enough to have some excess money and they give anonymously, they don't need any recognition. I see that as a sort of stepping stone.
Yes.
Because they have.
Even they're still inside
the
the
mental
they're
experience.
But still, at least something has been changed.
It's something's been changed. They don't need a pat on the back. So
Exactly.
Their name on the paper.
Yes.
And if they do have a name on the paper, it's still good. They've still given a donation. But if they give it anonymously, then that is a step to that.
Yeah.
But they in their heart, they
Sorry?
want change. They give you the money and the.
That's not necessarily true, because some people actually, through that recognition of the act, they can also help others. I mean, not everybody has to do something anonymously.
No,
because that gives
yeah,
an
I-
opportunity of others to see, look what he's doing, what great things that man is doing. Perhaps I can do it too.
Inspires.
And also raising more money through that recognition. So it's all a matter of the mind. I think what the mind is feeling. What happens on the outside at the end becomes irrelevant if it comes from the right place in your heart and the right place in your mind, which is actually the same thing. Then everything else will flow.
Yeah.
The right karma, the right samskara.
Yeah. Yes.
I remember when I read the Karma Yoga from Swami Vivekananda that he said about, like, for example, because we were talking about two differentiations about karma, I mean something positive and something, I think that's how we know, something positive and something negative.
Yes.
And I remember he saying that when I'm giving these words, nobody can say that I'm doing something negative. But at the same time, when I'm talking, I'm killing microorganisms. So I'm also always doing, in the outcome, something negative. You can do something positive only for the universe, the whole universe. Whatever you're doing, you're always also doing affecting.
Little bit, very little bit, yes.
And for me, that way is like the way that you have to do, no matter the outcome it is. Because otherwise you just stay at home and do nothing and try to die as soon as possible. So then you don't harm anyone, you don't do anything good, you just, sit there and try to die as soon as possible. So you better, I think, you better don't think so much. Because I guess also everybody, like even when we're doing our asanas, until Puja is shouting to us and improving our asanas, we are still doing our best.
Yes.
There is no other way. We don't do, whatever we do, we are always doing our best.
Yeah.
And someone else from outside can see that there is something else to do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we wouldn't even wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Or get up out of bed.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we always do our best. When we are cooking, when we are talking, when we are sharing, at that precise moment, in the present moment, we are doing our best.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Yeah.
So it is just do.
Just do.
Just do.
Just do. Or just allow it to be done. Just allow it to happen. Just allow it to flow.
I would like to make a distinction about what you were saying. I think we always do everything awareness, because there cannot be other way. Awareness is always there. I think the differentiation for my feeling is like if we are consciously aware of what we are doing, because in awareness we are every moment in awareness. And I think that consciously aware, like when we are eating, oh, I was not conscious, I was eating, but I was aware.
Yeah.
So I think that is also
Yeah. Everything ultimately, all action happens from awareness, but awareness of yes, being present there, knowing that it is happening.
Are you done?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I will speak loud. I have it's fundamental question.
Yeah.
With the sutras, what is good and bad? What is negative and positive? Is it like Buddhism when they say good is when you do something for others? But what is the base? What is good? What is bad? How do you define that? How do they define it?
Yeah. There are a few definitions that they put into place. First of all, of course, as I said in the very beginning, that anything that leads us away from ourselves, pulls us away from ourselves, that is seen as an impurity, and that which helps us to get closer to oneself, that is what they see as something good. And yes, again, the definition that is there, papa, from which we need to protect ourselves because it is harmful for ourselves as well as harmful for others. So the very definition there in that case of papa would be that which is harmful to ourselves and harmful to others. So yes, it is.
Means getting away from, getting far from one's awareness to itself. This is bad. That's from what I understand.
Yes, because being confused about one's own self is what they see as what in yoga, in the understanding of yoga, this wrong self-conception that a person develops is what they see as the root cause of selfish attachment, hatred and fear, and therefore it is what they call one of the fundamental causes of suffering, one of the 5 fundamental causes of suffering, one of the 5 kleshas. So yes, that is one of the really basic 5 fundamental causes of all suffering. Yes. So that misconception, that confused understanding of what I am and what I am not. That is what they see, and once that has been clarified, then in the understanding of yoga, that internal bliss, that universal love will radiate from within, and then all actions will naturally be inspired by that inner love, and therefore then the yogi does not, he comes to that state where, as I said again earlier, that he does not commit good deeds, he does not execute good deeds, but good deeds happen through him. That is what I think most of the mystical traditions, Sufi Islam or the mystical traditions of India, they have this same idea, that once that inner confusion is resolved, then that universal love becomes the very natural tendency. That is what Ishavasya Upanishad in this previous mantra, Tato na vijugupsate, the 6th mantra, spoke about, that when a person understands himself, then he can love. There is no hatred anymore.
I think it's good, this thing with good and bad, those 2 words of good and evil, that's what confuses most of us. Like the fact that in Sanskrit, as you were explaining, it's what takes us away from ourselves. That's a much better way to look at it, because everybody has their own opinion about what good and bad is. So that doesn't really exist. The fact that you think it could even be something beautiful, as in, for instance, an example comes to me, even falling in love and getting married and having children. that is in itself a very lovely and beautiful thing. But at the same time, it can lead you away from yourself. You know, it can lead you away from that path. So
Depends.
Depends.
It really depends.
See anything. It's not
It depends.
Killing somebody is a bad thing, so that way I'm not. There is no good.
That is why deciding what is right and wrong has been considered to be the most confusing thing. Because even what everybody would call wrong can be right under one particular circumstance. And this is one of the discussions in Mahabharata, that you don't have everything black and white. In certain...
There is no right and wrong.
Yes. Well...
It would lead you away from
Yeah.
That's a definition, but I don't think in reality there is right or wrong. This is the base of these teachings.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
have to some stones, but
Because good can lead to something evil at the end, and evil can at the end of the circle be something good. It's all connected. But what leads you away from?
And then dharma and adharma, you know, that which helps us to evolve and that which does not help us to evolve or stops our evolution. That also can be taken as a beautiful criteria of that.
Do you guys know the Zen parable about the man and the horse going off the board? It's very famous. Yeah, I told you that. Yeah. So he tells us.
Can you tell everybody, including me, which one is it?
Yeah, really? Yeah. We've talked about this parable. It's actually a Zen parable, but Alan Watts.
Alan Watts. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
he tells
okay.
it.
He's beautiful. Alan Watts is beautiful. Yeah, he's beautiful.
It's something like, so a man goes out one day and he sees a wild horse, and he breaks this wild horse, and then he brings the wild horse back to his house. And all of the neighbors come and they say, "Oh, great, this is wonderful, you have this new horse." And then the next day he goes out and he gets on the horse and he breaks his leg. And everyone's like, "Oh no, this is terrible, your leg is broken." Then the next day war is declared, and then all of the young men that are eligible to go off to war are taken to war, and then they die. And so then the neighbors come and they say, "Oh, it's so wonderful you broke your leg, because now you're not going off to war and you're not dead."
That's it.
Yeah. We have a similar story in India about that, about Akbar and Birbal, you know, where his finger gets cut, and a common story that we hear in Vedantic circles, which is exactly the same message.
The Mahabharata is full of these.
The Mahabharata is full of these stories.
So you don't get attached to whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think that, and I think this even going beyond the good and the evil, like why I was thinking about Nietzsche, is that it can be perverted very easily into going over human and becoming like nihilistic, and just negative, and carrying it. It doesn't matter, it just doesn't matter what.
That's cynicism.
Yeah, so it can get very.
We should really have one day just for discussion.
I told you. I suggested this to Siddhartha.
Yes, we should have one day. Just let. It's beautiful because we learn so much from each other, and that is where the true learning actually takes place. When everybody of us is made to think, is made to contemplate. Today we will have to keep the limitation of the time. I will just finish with answering her first question, which she gave, because she asked me to give another example. And another example that is sometimes given is that whether you have a shackle made out of iron or made out of gold, it doesn't matter, because ultimately both lead to bondage. So that is usually the other example that is often given, whether you have a shackle made out of iron or made out of gold. Both, the work of a shackle is ultimately to bind. So whether it is made out of gold or whether it is made out of iron, it leads both. And that is the example that is sometimes given in the case of punya and papa, that both ultimately lead to bondage. Okay. That is why, yes, just one final observation, that is why sometimes the word papa is also used for punya in the Upanishads. This is when it becomes extremely confusing. And here, apapa viddham, he is free from papa. If you look at Shankaracharya's commentary, he will say that it means that he transcends papa, which is both dharma and adharma, which is right and wrong, both. It transcends both. And I think the story that you gave of the horse really again summarizes it beautifully and nails it down. The more one thinks about it, the more it really nails it down. So let us conclude with this short prayer. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shantihi, shantihi, shantihi.